Hello everyone. In this session, we will be learning about what gastrulation is all about, and we will learn generally how gastrula is formed and what exactly happens in this process of gastrulation. And also, we will learn about different types of morphogenetic movements that is witnessed during this process of gastrulation. I am Dr. Lata, Assistant Professor, Department of Zoology, Maharani Science College for Women, Bengaluru. Now, if this diagram tells us the generalized aspect of what the process of gastrulation is all about. If we observe here, you can see the blastocele, which is the cavity of a blastula. It is getting decreased in size, and at the same time a new cavity called archenteron has formed. And why this new cavity of archenteron is formed? That is because of the inward movement of certain cells from the surface of this developing embryo. So these cells, now what makes them move inward and in what way they get inside the developing zygote, all this we will learn in this process of gastrulation. Now in our previous sessions we have learned about the structure of blastula, and we know that here it's a representative form of a blastula in frog. Just to take a recap of what we have understood so far. So we know that in blastula it will have a single layer of blastomeres, and then it encloses a cavity called as blastocele, and towards the animal pole you will have micromeres, which are smaller blastomeres and without yolk, whereas towards the vegetal pole you find larger blastomeres with yolk, and hence they are called as macromeres because of their larger size. And the micromeres towards the animal pole, which gives rise to the presumptive epidermis and the nervous system from the neural ectoderm. And from the gray crescent or the marginal zone, it is from this region of gray crescent that the cells or the blastomere starts invaginating, or it is from this region the blastomeres start moving inside the blastula, so that they can convert this blastula into a three-layered gastrula at the end of the process. So towards the vegetal pole you have larger macromeres, that is which are going to form the future endoderm, whereas the cells that move from the gray crescent and they'll form the mesoderm, and they go and occupy a place in between this ectoderm and the endoderm layers. Now let us understand in detail like how this whole process of gastrulation takes place. Now, gastrulation is defined as a dynamic process. Why we call this as a dynamic process is because we come across lots of morphogenetic movements, the movement of cells, and lots of activity in the cell happening in order to perform these morphogenetic movements. And these are all a kind of coordinated movements. It's not like very haphazard movement of blastomeres moving here and there. The morphogenetic movements of these blastomeres happen very systematically and in a very coordinated way, and such kind of coordinated movement of these blastomeres that you see in a blastula is what we called as gastrulation. The movement of cells in the embryo from one place to other to form a particular structure is what is called as morphogenetic movements. So the primary force behind these morphogenetic movements could be due to the change in the cell shape, or it could be due to the cell adhesion or an ability of an individual cells to migrate from one place to the other. So when we talk about these morphogenetic movements, different varieties of such movements has been observed during this process of gastrulation. Now, when we consider all such movements, it can be broadly classified into two. One is the epibole, that is the outward movement. Epi means above, so the stretching or movement of cells above this or around this blastula is what we call as epibole. And emboli means the inward movement. So when these blastomeres move inside the blastula, that is called as an emboli. And epibole is commonly seen only in the presumptive ectoderm forming cells, and they are basically the micromeres which are without yolk. And these micromeres, they spread all around the blastula so that it covers the whole embryo as such, and in future they give rise to the epidermal derivatives, and also the neural ectoderm give rise to the nervous system. Whereas when we talk about emboli, that is represented by various kinds of morphogenetic movements. So inward movement is not just moving in. There are different varieties like invagination, involution, ingression. All these are the movements that happens inside the inside the blastula. So such kind of movements are all classified under emboli, and since they are all directed inwards. So let us learn one by one in detail. So epibole, as I said, it means to throw out or to extend upon. So it is the movement of the epidermal cells spreading over as a unit to cover the deeper layers of the embryo, and it occurs only in the presumptive ectodermal layers. That is, it could be a blastomeres that give rise to epidermis or to the neural nervous system or the neural ectodermal cells. So these cells of this epidermal ectoderms, they have an inherent property of flattening, expanding and stretching. Now why these characters are very important? They are important because when there is a need for these epibolic movement, the cells has to expand, they have to stretch themselves and cover the whole embryo. So in doing so, the cells become flattened, and hence these are the three basic features of these cells which has to undergo the process of epibole. Now in this diagram A, if you see, you can see that the cells have become little flattened out and they look stretched out. So that's how the cells has to be little flexible so that they can cover the whole area of this developing embryo. So this can be related to an event, something like if you take a balloon or a ball and over that if you are pouring some viscous fluid means little thickened consistency of liquid. When you pour it, how it covers the whole surface of the ball or a balloon, this process of epibole also occurs in a similar way. So the cells of this presumptive ectodermal areas, it's remain on the surface, eventually forming the outer layer and the entire embryo, and it envelops the inwardly migrating presumptive endodermal and the mesodermal layers. Thereby this by the action of this epibole, all the ectoderm forming cells will come and align at the outer surface of the embryo. So this is what epibole is all about, and this is very much confined only to the epidermal cells. Now when we learn about this emboli means to throw in or to thrust in. So it's an inward kind of movement, unlike epibole. So here such movements bring about the migration of presumptive mesodermal and the endodermal cells from the external surface of the embryo into its interior. Now when we learnt about fate maps of different organisms, we understood that you have these micromeres, the blastomeres in the gray crescent region and towards the vegetal pole, which will be forming the future mesodermal they form the presumptive mesodermal regions and the presumptive endodermal regions. So to form this mesoderm and the endoderm, what is the original position of this mesoderm and endoderm? Mesoderm should be found between ectoderm and the endoderm, and endoderm should be the innermost lining if you consider in the order of germinal layers, that how it has to go and settle down. So these mesoderm and endodermal cells which are there towards the surface now, they have to move inside, they have to go inside the blastula, and they have to occupy their destined places, so that as and when the process of neurogenesis and organogenesis takes place, they will give rise to the concerned organs. This is the basic principle of emboli. Now this emboli or the inward movement, they include several different types of cell movements. Now we'll understand one by one in detail. The first one is invagination. Now this invagination, it includes the process of infolding or rolling in of the presumptive endodermal areas, and this is the most widely observed embolic movements seen during gastrulation in most of the animals, like in echinoderms, the amphioxus, the amphibians, etc. So this is the most commonly observed embolic movements. Now what happens in invagination? See, if you consider, when you look at this diagram A, if you focus here, now what is happening, this is a single layer of cell, and if it has to undergo invagination, it has to exhibit this inward movement. Now in this, if you consider this embryo, this is a section of a blastula which is undergoing or which is exhibiting this process of invagination. And if you see here, this is the outermost layer, and here the few endoderm cells are showing this inward movement. So this process of inward movement of this endoderm cells is what is called as invagination. Now by exhibiting this process of invagination, what changes it is bringing it to the blastula? Originally, the cavity of the blastula, we know that it is called as blastocele. Now when these cells move inside, this gave rise to a new cavity, the new space which is enclosed in between these invaginating cells, known as archenteron. And whenever there is a cavity, there has to be an opening for that, and that is called as blastopore. Now when such things happen, what will happen? The size of this blastocele becomes reduced because it is giving rise to the formation of a new cavity, that is archenteron. Now this process of invagination, it may be passive, occurring as a result of the activity of other cells, or it could be even active process resulting from the inherent forces within the invaginating cells, so that each blastomere or each cell will pull the other inside. So such process of movement of blastomeres is what is called as invagination. Now there could be various causes that has been attributed to the process of invagination. Firstly, it could be due to the absorption of blastocelic fluid by certain cells, or it could be due to differences in the characteristics of this blastocelic fluid and the external medium, or it could be due to the higher relative alkalinity of blastocelic fluid, which causes this local surface tension changes in the membrane of certain cells, and thereby exhibiting this process of inward movement, which we call it as invagination. Now the second kind of inward movement is involution. Now involution is also an inward kind of movement, but of an expanding outer layer, so that it spreads over the internal surface of the remaining external cells. Don't get confused with this. Now what happens in involution is that the cells roll over a few cells, and then it exhibits an inward movement. So if you observe this diagram here, this clearly represents how this process of invagination occurs. Now, in invagination, what we saw, the cells were directly moving in like this. But then in involution, it is rolling over on the already existing cells and then moving inside. See, if you see here it takes a bend, it takes a curve, it rolls over these cells and then it moves inside. So such kind of movement is what is called as involution. So this normally this kind of movement is seen in the mesodermal blastomeres, which is observed in amphioxus, frog, birds and reptiles. So this is the only difference between invagination and involution. In invagination, it is a just plain direct inward movement of blastomeres, whereas in involution, it takes a turn, it rolls over the other cells and then it moves inside. So such kind of movement is called as involution. There's one more kind known as intercalation. Now during intercalation, what happens? Two or more rows of cells move between one another, creating an array of cells that is longer but thinner. Now, the overall change in shape of this tissue, it results from why it becomes thinner is because there occurs a rearrangement of cells during this process of intercalation. So it could be a powerful means of expanding a tissue sheet, and the movement like convergent extension is a specialized form of this intercalation. So here if you observe the diagram, now you have two different types of cells, one in blue and one in peach. During intercalation, what happens? The cells change their shape to accommodate each other, and finally they form a new layer with alternating cell type, and thereby the size of the cells also has become little thinner. So this kind of rearrangement of cell is what we called as intercalation, whereas convergent intercalation is shown in the second representation, wherein if you observe, initially you have four layers of cells, and as they converge, it facilitates the movement of cells from the upper and the lower layer, and then the middle layers try to fit in between that, thereby giving rise to a converged extended layer, which is called as convergent extension. I hope all these three are clear to you. Moving on, there's one more method of inward movement, which is called as delamination. Here, as the name suggests, delamination, one group of cells gets separated from the already existing one to form a separate cell layer. Now this includes splitting of a pre-existing sheet of cells into two or more sheets, usually with a space separating them. So here if you see, you can see a layer of these blastomeres, and during the process of delamination, what happens? This process, this whole layer here, this layer gets detached and they form a separate layer. Now as and when it moves little down or gets separated, what happens? When this particular layer, it moves downwards, then in between you find some space. So that's how the process of delamination occur, and this is very much evident in the gastrulation of chick and other amniotes also. Now the next one is ingression. Now in this process, migration of individual cells from the surface blastoderm into the embryo's interior takes place. Individual cells become mesenchymal, that is, they become separate from each other and they migrate independently into the cavity or the spaces in the developing embryo. Now these primary mesodermal cells of sea urchin embryo will become internal by this process, and the most common example for such process of ingression is seen with the neural crest cells, which becomes mesenchymal type and it emigrates out of an epithelium. So this is a representation of how exactly the ingression process occurs. Now you have a single layer of cells. From that few cells they become mesenchymal, that is they drop out of that layer and they behave like an individual cells, and these cells later move inside the embryo wherever it is destined to go. So they move independently and they may form a layer, or they may move independently and may go to a respective places. So such kind of movement is what is called as ingression. Now Lothrop has described two types of ingressions. One is multipolar ingression, wherein the movement of randomly distributed cells from their original position into the blastocele, and this ingression of cells may be either because of a paratangential cell division or by primary delamination. Multipolar ingression occurs at the time of segregation of two primary germ layers in reptiles and birds. Now the other type is unipolar ingression, which occurs only in one region, which is always located around the vegetal pole region. So it is involved in the segregation of germ layers in the flattened blastula of Porifera and Cnidaria. In amphibians, the segregation of mesoderm takes place with the help of this unipolar ingression. So these are the two types of ingression movement. Now in addition to these movements, like whatever we have discussed so far, they are the major kind of morphogenetic movements that is seen, like the epiboly, which stands for the outward movement, then emboli. In emboli we have discussed about invagination, involution, delamination, ingression. So these are the major morphogenetic movements that are seen. In addition to these, in addition to these movements and along with these, another three more accessory process also occurs, or which is commonly observed. One is the convergence. It's also called as concrescence. So this process of convergence means, it simply say accumulation of blastomeres at one point. So as this process of epiboly continues, it gradually draws two lips of the blastopore towards the middle line, leading to the convergence of those areas towards the midline, which will form the axial structures of the embryo, like the neural cord or the notochord. And such kind of accumulation of blastomeres at any one point is what is called as convergence. It accumulates at a point and then it spreads around, but the point where it all get accumulated is what is called as convergence. Now you have the next accessory process called as divergence. It is the opposite of convergence. Like once all the blastomeres have come and accumulated in a certain point, it cannot retain there, it needs to migrate and diverge to occupy their future positions. Like for example, the movement of lateral plate mesoderm or ventral mesoderm in case of frog, or the extra embryonic mesoderm in case of reptiles, birds and mammals. Such kind of divergence is seen. And then extension. It is the elongation of this entire embryo in its anterior posterior axis. Once gastrulation completes, it enters into the process of neurulation, and during which the embryo extends antero-posteriorly, and this process is called as extension. So these convergence, divergence and extension can occur along with the other process or other process simultaneously. So these are the few morphogenetic movements that occur generally in the process of gastrulation. It could be with respect to any of the organism. We come across these kind of morphogenetic movements. Now, why this process of gastrulation should occur? What is its significance? The zygote forms, it undergoes cleavage, it forms morula, it gives rise to blastula. Then once blastula is formed, then it ends up or it gets converted into a gastrula, and it is in this stage of gastrula that the formation of three germ layers takes place, and from these three germ layers is that you are going to get the future organ forming areas of an organism. So in what way this gastrulation is significant, let us learn. Now, gastrulation is a very important and very significant stage in the development because it brings the presumptive organ forming rudiments from the external surface of the blastula to their prospective normal positions, which will develop into organs of the adult. So once this presumptive organ forming areas have reached their original places, they induce the development of different organ systems. That means the movement of these blastomeres which give rise to form mesoderm is very much essential so that it comes and lie in between ectoderm and endoderm. So only when the mesoderm takes its position below the ectoderm, that the ectoderm will give rise to its derivatives. If such mesodermal layer is not found below the ectoderm, probably the ectoderm will not form its epidermal derivatives. That's what it means when we say it is these layers that induce the development of different organ system. Now gastrulation is this gastrulation is necessary for the formation of central nervous system. This can be demonstrated by the occurrence of exogastrulae of frog and other amphibians. If the protective surface coat is removed from the egg surface by keeping this fertilized egg in hypertonic saline solution, the embryo developed is an exogastrule. Now in exogastrulation, what happens? Now for example, this is the blastula which has a blastocele, and here it has been labeled like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and the other side as A, B, C, D, E, F. Now generally what we see, if you consider the general process of gastrulation, these cells, the blastomeres which are labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and A, B, C, D, E, F, they both should move inwards so that they give rise to the mesodermal layer and the endodermal layer. But here what happens, since we have removed that external covering of this gastrula or the embryo at the very early stage, once because of that the inward movement will not take place, and as a result the zygote at the end of its development, it just gives rise to the pronephros, the somites and the notochord, whereas the differentiation of ectoderm and its derivatives, that is the nervous system, will never get formed because there is no differentiation of the ectoderm into epidermal ectoderm and the neural ectoderm. So epidermis is not formed and the nervous system is not formed. So what does it mean? It means that the derivatives of this ectoderm is completely shunted off. So what happened in this exogastrula? In an exogastrula, the archenteron is everted, it is not formed. The endoderm encloses the chorda mesoderm tissue, while the ectoderm becomes isolated as an empty crumbled envelope from rest of the tissue. So in exogastrulation, the mesoderm and the notochordal tissue develop to a great extent, forming an axial notochord associated. It forms associated somites and the pronephric rudiments together with various other mesodermal structure, whereby the ectoderm as such will degenerate and no nervous and sensory structures are formed because of its isolation from the underlying mesoderm. So this shows that mesoderm is very much necessary for the ectoderm to form its future forming areas. So as a result, nervous system is not formed, and because of this The process of gastrulation is very important, so that all these three germ layers goes and occupies its destined places. Now this slide will give you a overall summary as to what these three germ layers will form in any organism. For example, ectoderm, that will give rise to somatic ectoderm, which in turn differentiates into epidermis or any kind of epidermal derivatives, which could be in the form of a scale, feather, hair, nail, or whatever. It gets differentiated into the olfactory organs, the lens of the eye, the auditory vesicles, lining of the stomodium and the proctodium. Whereas and also the neural ectoderm, that will give rise to the formation of neural crest, and this neural crest cells will differentiate into ganglia, the sensory nerves, branchial skeleton, adrenal medulla and pigment cells. Whereas neural tube, that will differentiates into the brain, the spinal cord, the cranial and the spinal motor nerves, retina, optic nerve and the posterior pituitary. Whereas mesoderm gives rise to structures like notochord, epimere, mesomere and hypomere. And notochord, it persists as rod in amphioxus, and in higher vertebrates it is replaced by vertebral column. Whereas epimere, it is again differentiates into dermatome, sclerotome and myotome, which in turn give rise to the vertebral column and the skeletal muscles and appendicular skeleton. Whereas mesomere will give rise to the excretory organs and the reproductive organs. Whereas hypomere will form somatic layer, which will differentiate into parietal peritoneum, the splanchnic layer, which forms visceral peritoneum, mesenteries, heart, blood vessels, gonads and the muscles of viscera, and the coelom, which gave rise to the body cavity. Whereas the innermost layer, that is the endoderm, that forms the lining of the digestive tract, liver, pancreas, respiratory system, endocrine glands, lining of vagina, urethra, reproductive glands and the auditory, the tube and cavity of the middle ear. So these are the different structures that has been derived from these three basic germ layers. So now finally, what is the outcome of gastrulation? It results in the formation of three germ layers. From the time the zygote is formed, with the help of gametes, you get a zygote, then it undergoes cleavage and blastula and then gastrulation. It is in this gastrula stage that the differentiation of these three germ layers occurs, and these are the respective derivatives of these germ layers, and hence all different structures of an organism will come into shape because of this process of gastrulation. Gastrulation plays a very important role in the process of development of an embryo, and hence this process is very much important. I hope you have understood the concept, and if you have any doubts regarding the same, you can always mail your queries to me. I'll be happy to answer, and I hope you all enjoy learning this concept of gastrulation. Thank you for listening, and all your queries you can write it to my mail ID vlatadamodaran@gmail.com. Have a good day.